rolling around for the past 2 years because of people like you. We are going to hold them accountable for everything. And we're going to find out some weird things on the way, I bet. Like, I would put money on that for sure. You think you kind of have an idea what's going on, and then it's going to be like, oh, this is actually what happened. It's the world, man. Curveball every day you wake up. This next tune is, that tune was probably the most politically charged-ish song that I had written until I wrote this next one. And again, we're the folk singers. Guys, this is your moment. Don't be fighting with Joe Rogan anymore. Write us some good songs. Like, let's go. Okay. So anyways, this song is called Freedom. If you've attended any rally that I've been at, you've probably heard it because I get up there and I cry, sing through it. But I'm trying to get better at that. But anyways, yeah, in the spirit of freedom and why the heck we're all here tonight, because that's I think what we're looking for. This one's called Freedom. It's out on the streamings, and there's a video on BitChute only because YouTube would probably not let me have it up there. This one's called Freedom. Every one of our loved ones sent overseas, friends, fathers, sisters, brothers, so we could live free. Those brave souls laid down their lives for you and me. Looking down upon us now, do you think they believe we're asking freedom? Where are you? Please don't turn your back on us now. Any bad night for you. I pray to God we never lose you. Freedom, freedom, oh, freedom. Now this world is spinning crazy. You say you're doing fine. When I look around, I wonder, have they just broke your spine? What are you gonna tell your children? Can you look them in the eye? When they ask you how the storm went down, can you say you held the line? Freedom, where are you? Please don't turn your back on us now. Any bad night for you. I pray to God we never lose you. Freedom, freedom, oh, freedom. So I'm looking around this room tonight and I see a couple faces that I know, because I've seen you at rallies and now we're friends and it's fun. But I'm also looking around this room and I'm like, yes, the message is being sent and you're receiving it, because there's a whole bunch of people here I've never seen before. So just when you think, oh, it's just the same people, it's not. We're really doing something and we're really making a difference. I'm optimistic as all heck. Talk to me tomorrow, could be different. But today, I'm feeling really good about this, okay? Oh, we gonna rise together, we take a stand. Oh, will you bow down and break to the every command? The whole world's watching you, it falls in all our hands. For the true north, strong and free, our home and native land. Freedom, where are you? Please don't turn your back on us now. Any bad night for you. I pray to God we never lose you. Freedom, where are you? Please don't turn your back on us now. Any bad night for you. I pray to God we never lose you.
Lindsay Butler. Awesome. Wow, that was really great. So, is Alberta truly ungovernable? This is the question that I have tonight. When I first heard Rebel's new movie called Ungovernable, I wanted to go out immediately and get a tattoo. I am Albertan and I am ungovernable. Right? I love the name and I totally identified with the word ungovernable and thought it was a very provocative and accurate title for a movie about Alberta independence. Has anybody seen it in here tonight? Yes, me too. It's awesome. Well, it's okay. There's some things I liked about it and there's some things I didn't like about it. But it got me thinking, are we really ungovernable? Or are we just ungovernable by inept bureaucracies with stupid agendas? Right? Are we truly ungovernable or are we governed from within? Or are we ungovernable because of our innate and raw ability to be prosperous no matter what? Well, my husband and I went to that movie last week at Canyon Meadows, and it was a good movie. It was a great event. I thought it was a great event, and it was a good movie. There were some things I agreed with, and there were some things I didn't agree with, but visually it was lively, gritty, and honest. And a great credit to the very young director, Kian Simone, from Ontario, no less, or Comtario, as I like to call it, who captured something of what I've come to know about Albertans. Albertans are resourceful, tenacious, generous, progressive, innovative, persevering, down to earth, self-directed, friendly, entrepreneurial, and most of all, independent. Albertans are self-reliant. They deal with things. They get things done. Yeah. And they don't make excuses. And it doesn't matter if you were born here or if you came here from somewhere else. If you stay here for any length of time, you adopt the Albertan way and Alberta adopts you. That is truly the heart of an Albertan, as I see it. So if you're trying to govern Alberta with anything less than an Albertan standard, or with anything but Alberta's best interests at heart, without taking time to understand the heart of an Albertan, then you, my friend, may well find Alberta to be ungovernable, Mr. Kenny. Albertans have a job to do right now, and we need to not let anyone get in the way. We have resources to get to market. We have people that need to work. We have a healthcare system that needs to be overhauled before we lose it. We have bright children that need to be properly educated and whom we need to create a future for. And we need independence and not handouts, Mr. Trudeau. We need more Alberta and less Ottawa, and the APP has a plan. I always like to say that because we do have a plan. So what is the APP? I'm going to go over this. I go over it every time. To be clear, the Alberta Prosperity Project is not a political party. It is a non-profit, non-partisan project to educate, inform, and inspire Albertans about the following: the benefits of an independent constitutional republic within or without Canada, about how Alberta has been treated unfairly since its inception in 1905, and that certain aspects of that unfairness are actually baked into the Constitution. That it is nearly impossible to open up the Constitution to change anything to give Alberta a fair deal. Let's take the vote we had on equalization, for example, where 63% of Albertans voted in favor of abolishing equalization. This is what needs to happen to open up the Constitution to get that done. First, we have to get 7 out of 10 provinces representing 50% of the population to agree to open it up, while 6 out of 10 of those provinces are receiving equalization, right? Yeah, no conflict there. No chance either, right? Secondly, it has to be passed in the House of Commons. As you may have noticed, nothing sensible is being passed in the House of Commons these days with this unholy eco-dictatorship NDP Liberal alliance. Had it. Thirdly, if for some miraculous reason it gets through the House of Commons, it now needs to be passed by the Senate. The unelected, appointed by the Prime Minister's office, Senate. Fourth, it has to be passed by the Supreme Court, where 6 out of 9 judges are from Ontario and Quebec, 1 from the Maritimes, and 2 judges from all of Western Canada and the 3 territories. And last, but certainly not least, because Quebec is never least, if it gets this far, Quebec has a de facto veto that it can borrow from the federal government at any time. For those of you who don't know, Quebec gets 2 out of every $3 of the equalization that Alberta sends to Ottawa. Yeah, true. Yeah, without a thank you. So I have to ask you, do you think that Quebec would refrain from using that veto, even though we're asking so politely, to shut down the piggy bank pipeline? I don't think so. I don't think they're going to do it. Enough is enough. The main thing that the APP wants all Albertans to understand is that the only legitimate way that Alberta can move forward out of this hopeless and endless cycle is with a successful referendum for independence. Why? Because that will give us the leverage that we need to make a case for ourselves in Ottawa, whether or not we ultimately want to become independent within Canada or without Canada. Either way. After Quebec had its unsuccessful but very close referendum for separation in 1995, it was decided by the Supreme Court of Canada that a province cannot unilaterally declare independence. However, if a clear question is asked on a referendum and answered positively with a clear majority, then the federal government and the other provinces will be compelled to have to negotiate with that province in good faith. And if a deal cannot be struck in that negotiation, that province can then legitimately go its own way. That is the Clarity Act, and it applies to every province in Canada, even Alberta. APP's Dr. Dennis Modry, who couldn't be here tonight, lays this out in fine detail in his paper, Alberta at the Crossroads, a paper prepared for Ralph Klein in 2003. There's a copy of it on the table back there if you get a chance to look at it. And if you'd like a copy, let me know. I can arrange to have it emailed to you. This paper is the very basis for the Alberta Prosperity Project, in which he outlines all of the reasons why this needs to be done and what we have to do to get this done. This paper was written almost 20 years ago and almost nothing has changed. In fact, things have only progressed to a complete state of idiocracy that is only going to get worse if we don't stop it now. It's time for us to act. There are some things we can do right now, even without opening up the Constitution, that would give Alberta greater autonomy. Things that Quebec is already doing within Confederation, and which Alberta has never had the political will or the leadership in Edmonton to do so. Maybe we do now. That remains to be seen. But our job is to hold all politicians accountable on all levels. We need to tell them when we don't like what they're doing. And I think it's just as importantly, we need to tell them and support them when we do like what they're doing. I actually wrote Danielle Smith a little note the other day, commending her for her comment about the unvaccinated being the most discriminated group she has seen in her lifetime. That comment rang absolutely true to me, and I told her so. And I also told her that I really hoped she wouldn't apologize for it. We need leaders who lead unapologetically. We need leaders who say what they mean and mean what they say. It is our job to be big, loud, united, and politically educated voice for Alberta, so that our leaders at all levels who want to stay in power must listen to us. We need to inspire Albertans about our APP vision for a free and prosperous Alberta, and to help them understand that a successful referendum for independence is the only possible legitimate way forward, whether we want to stay in Canada or not. And we need to remember that it needs to be a successful referendum for independence. This is the work. We need more than 50 plus 1% of the voting population in Alberta to be on board with this, to understand it fully before we go to the polls. If we're going to save Alberta and save ourselves, we have work to do, all of us. We need to put our differences aside, whatever they are, and support this project. It doesn't matter which party you belong to, because we all want the same thing, a free and prosperous Alberta. For our children, for our grandchildren, for the future of Alberta, and for the future of Canada, because I believe that Alberta can lead the way for the rest of the country. We need to show Canada how to be the most free and prosperous society in the world. Thank you. Our first speaker is from Calgary. He's been practicing law for more than 30 years. He has effectively advocated for the rights and interests of First Nations in Canada at all levels of court for over 20 years, and has been involved in winning cases for First Nations at every level of court in Canada for that as well. He acted as lead counsel in the Mikisew Cree Nation case at the Supreme Court of Canada, in which the court issued a unanimous 9-0 ruling in favor of the Mikisew in what has become a landmark decision of that court. You might also recognize his name as one of the litigators who had Dr. Dina Henshaw in the hot seat over the last while. She deserves to be on the hot seat. He is a no-nonsense, let's get results kind of guy, and we are happy to have him on our board of directors as VP General Counsel. Ladies and gentlemen, here to shed some light on independence in the legal system, Mr. Jeffrey Rath.
Thank you very much. Lindsay Butler, there's an act to follow. Thank you very much, Lindsay. So, welcome to Conspiracy Facts, Jeffrey Rath. So, anyway, first of all, I wanted to thank all of you for coming out tonight, and thank you for having us this evening as well. One of the things that I wanted to follow up on is this question of what is the Alberta Prosperity Project? And the simple answer is look around this room. You are all the Alberta Prosperity Project. You are what makes this work, and you need to understand the degree to which all of you have contributed already to political seismic shifts in this province. The discussion of the Sovereignty Act, the degree to which independence was a key and central aspect of the last UCP leadership debate and discussion going forward, is all because all of us coming together in rooms like these all over the province to make sure that our governments understand that independence is a driving goal of many, many, many Albertans. So I want to thank you all for that, because the political shift that we're sensing in this province towards independence, towards ending equalization, towards changing the future of this province for our children would not be happening without all of you. So thank you very much for that. The other thing that I wanted to talk about tonight, and it's usually Dr. Modry that sort of presents some of the background and why independence is such an urgent, it needs to be pursued with such urgency in Alberta. So I'm going to pick that up for Dr. Modry tonight. But I think we all heard of, Skippy's climate change end of Alberta economy by 2030 agenda, right? So the problem we have now is all of those morons got together about a month and a half ago and decided destroying the Alberta economy by 2030 wasn't fast enough. So now it's agenda 2027. So instead of getting everything done in in 8 years, they now want to basically put the boots to us harder for the next 5 and bring an end to a resource-based economy by 2027. These are the types of morons that we have elected in Ottawa, or not we, but our friends in Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritimes, who live off of our tax dollars, have decided to put into office. And if anybody has any doubts whatsoever as to how ridiculous these people are and how poorly governed we are, all you have to do is think about some of the statements that come out of the House of Commons following, the convoy protest in Ottawa. I was watching CPAC a week or two afterwards, and some moron of a Liberal was standing up in the House of Commons and literally bragging about the fact that he had invented the so-called green energy plan for Western Canada. Now, if I were him, that's not something I'd be bragging about, but there he was bragging about this so-called green energy plan for Western Canada. And one of the more moronic things that came out of his mouth was he said, "Oh, and did you know that in developing this plan, we discovered that there isn't anything you can't do with a barrel of canola oil that you can do with a barrel of petroleum?" Well, first of all, think about Joffrey and the plastics that we make and all of those types of things that come out of petroleum that don't come out of canola. But then, just for fun, as I was driving to an APP event somewhere in central Alberta that day, I thought, just for the hell of it, while I'm driving, I'll Google what the spot price is of a barrel of canola oil. And of course, this is Alberta, so we can actually Google and use our phones while we drive our pickup trucks on that. Leaving that aside. So you Google the spot price of a barrel of canola oil, and this genius was talking about running combines, pickup trucks, farm machinery, etc., on oil that costs $1,018 a barrel, right? These are the idiots that purport to govern us from Ottawa. So this is, in large part, the type of foolishness that we are, having to fight and that we're pushing back from, and that we all need to be independent of, right?
Yes.
The other looming crisis on the horizon, and I think some of you have heard me speak about this before, is this whole idea of universal basic income that they want to stuff down our throats. And again, this is a fundamental nature to our culture. This is a fundamental assault, as far as I'm concerned, on who we are as a people and how we as parents hope to raise our children, right? This whole universal basic income thing, there were two bills in the Senate. Now they're talking about bringing it in through the House of Commons. The first one is the actual universal basic income bill itself. And that bill proposes that every child who turns 17 will automatically be eligible for $2,000 a month for life, right? They don't have to be in school. They don't have to be planning to be in school. They don't have to be engaged in vocational training, planning to take vocational training, be in university, post-secondary, working, anything. It's just when you turn 17, you can just completely check out, smoke Trudeau legalized marijuana, and be given $2,000 a month to hang around at your mom and dad's basement, smoking pot, playing Nintendo, or whatever it is, that Trudeau expects our children to be doing once they turn 17. The companion bill to this is another bill where they purport to want to lower the voting age in Canada to 16, right? So we're going to have 16-year-olds in Canada vote on whether on their 17th birthday they can be given $2,000 a month and then not have to go to school anymore, not have to work, not have to do anything other than sit around and collect somebody else's money at $2,000 a month. Now, anybody that's even understands the most basic level of economics or the most basic things about labor markets needs to understand that once you start taking children at the age of 17 out of the workforce, basically turning them into useless and completely idle parasites on our society with no education, no training, no ambition, no desire to do anything other than hang around at home, smoke marijuana, collect $2,000 a month, do whatever it is you want to do. Pretty quickly, year after year, 5 or 6 or 7 years into that, we're not going to have a functioning economy in Canada other than through massive immigration, which is, in the long and short term, the goal of the World Economic Forum, people like Justin Trudeau and the rest of us that completely want to replace us all as human beings with people that are more pliable and more, willing to do what they tell us. So, and again, this isn't a conspiracy theory. These bills are, were before the Senate. They're coming back before the House of Commons. These are conspiracy facts, right? And this is the world that we live in. So when we talk about the urgency of independence and the need for Alberta to declare itself independent from Canada, these are the types of things that are looming on the horizon and why it is that we need to get the hell out of Dodge sooner rather than later, because they are planning to literally destroy our society as we know it. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about tonight is, again, keeping in mind what I was saying earlier, all of you are in fact the Alberta Prosperity Project. And all of us, as far as I'm concerned, can do the best that we can for our province, our families, our communities, etc., by spreading the word and spreading the message and continuing to keep pressure on politicians in Edmonton with regard to the need for a referendum as soon as possible. I'm listening, and one of the things that Dr. Modry always talks about, but it's something that people really need to internalize, is that were Alberta to declare independence tomorrow, and if Alberta was an independent country tomorrow, we would have the highest gross domestic product per capita of any country in the world, right? And the only reason that as a province we have a $120 billion debt, so think about that for a minute, the province has a $120 billion debt because Ottawa continues to siphon $35 billion a year out of Alberta to give it to Quebec, right? So Quebec has $5 a day universal daycare, right? All paid for by all of us, right? So we have working moms and dads, we have single moms, we have families that are, with 2 incomes, people trying to make ends meet. They're all paying between $1,200 and $1,800 a month to have their kids in daycare. And then they have the privilege of paying income tax that goes to Ottawa, so that Ottawa can then take all of our tax dollars and give them to Quebec, so everybody in Quebec can pay $5 a day for daycare. This is another reason that Alberta needs to get the hell out of Dodge, right? So as things currently stand, and Quebec was always constantly whining, oh, the fiscal imbalance of Canada, the fiscal imbalance. It is so horrible that we are being treated so poorly, the fiscal imbalance. You want fiscal imbalance? We pay $69 billion a year in taxes in this province that are collected by Ottawa. We get $29 billion back, right? So think about that for a minute. Think about how quickly we could completely pay off the provincial debt if that money stayed in Alberta. Think about the healthcare system that we would have. Think about all of the things that we could improve in this province with that level of funding staying in the province, rather than having all of that money go to Quebec so that Quebec can have $5 a day daycare, and insultingly to the rest of us, while claiming to be a have-not province, actually have a surplus budget while Alberta is continuing to run deficits and borrow money to give money to Quebec. I mean, if this isn't the most ridiculous system that anybody could possibly imagine or tolerate living in, I don't know what is. And the other day, I was offended, sitting there watching, you're listening to the news, and that's why all of us working together are so important. They had one of the new NDP radio ads on, and they go, oh, all Danielle Smith wants to talk about is sovereignty. What benefits do we get from sovereignty? And then you have here the crickets, right? Well, gee, I can think of 32 billion benefits that we would get from sovereignty that would pay for a hell of a lot of healthcare, pay a lot of teachers, pay all of the things that the NDP claim that should be important to us, but they would sooner give the money to the Trudeau Jagmeet Singh government in Ottawa, because the NDP, as you know, there's no division between the federal party and the provincial party. So if you're voting for Rachel, you're really voting for Justin Trudeau and his wife Jagmeet Singh. And as far as I'm concerned, this is what we need to be standing up against, and this is what we need to be pushing back against. So, all of us collectively get in touch with your MLAs, start making lists. Anybody that voted to lock you up in your home for the last 2 years as a member of the UCP caucus, you need to let Premier Smith know that you don't want her signing their bloody nomination papers. Right? We've got, Jason Kenney. Who again, and I give a lot of credit to APP for this, and people like all of you in rooms like this all the way across the province, going like, you know what, it's time to get rid of that boil on the butt of Alberta politics and get him out of office. In rooms like this all over the province, Jason Kenney was voted out. I mean, had the vote gone ahead on April 9th when we were all planning to go tailgating in Red Deer, he would have been gone that much sooner with a much more resounding number. And we all know that it was only through manipulation, cheating, and the general operation of the United Corruption Party at its finest, that he managed to eke out 51% with anybody actually figuring out or answering the question of how it is when the rules clearly say that you can't use 2 credit cards to buy 8,000 memberships, how he really had 51%. I mean, leave all of that aside. So, on a going forward basis, for those of us that care about independence, right now the only government we have is the UCP government. So you should be putting pressure on your MLAs, putting pressure on Premier Smith. Hold her to her promises with regard to support for sovereignty, independence, ending equalization, a provincial police force, a provincial pension system, all of those building blocks of an independent nation state that we want to create in Alberta. Danielle Smith has promised to provide for us, and she needs to be held to account for that and told, don't listen to the braying mob of, paid legacy media assholes, excuse my language, that want her to apologize every day for something, right? None of those people are going to vote for her anyway, right? None of them are going to support her. All of them want to see her fail, and all of us, to the extent that she's filling in and building on those things that we want to see her build on, like, again, police, pensions, et cetera, we need to support her in that, because right now that's the only game in town. And to the extent that we can continue to advance this agenda to the day that we get to have a referendum and vote Alberta out of Canada, I think that that's a very positive thing to do. And again, for those of you who are interested, I have been involved, quite a bit, as some of you may know, in a bunch of the AHS litigation. Just be patient. All of the things that have been promised are coming. Of it. I'm not officially on the transition team, but suffice it to say that lots of people who are witnesses in various court cases that I have been involved in are on that team. And all indications are that all of the things that we want and all of the promises that are being made, will be followed through on or are in process. So that gives me a lot of hope, and I wanted to share that with all of you tonight. And I think, we're winning. So we just need to keep moving forward. We need to stay united. Anybody that's come out tonight for the first time to an APP event, thank you. Please consider buying an APP membership. And if you have friends and family that don't have memberships, you know, birthday presents, Christmas, whatever it is. No, because in all seriousness, the more that we can grow the membership and the more we grow the movement, the more those people in Edmonton have to listen to us, which is what we want. And we're winning. We need to keep up the momentum, and we need to keep this moving forward. So thank you very much for listening to me. It's always an honor. Well, we'll be working forward on that as well. I guess the question was asked. We're going to do questions, I guess, later in the evening. But how we get the referendum on the ballot. We are working. We have a petition that's been circulating. One of the things that we're going to be looking at was one of the things that Todd Lowen was promising was to change the Citizens Initiatives Act to really lower the threshold. Because what happened was, I think when Kenny and his little pals figured out that we were APP was circulating a petition to table in the legislature for a referendum, they then brought in the Citizens Initiative Act, which basically set conditions that made it impossible to reach the thresholds that would be required under that statute. The word is that there's a talk of that being changed and lowered. We're going to continue to be putting pressure on the government every chance that we have. I mean, my basic point to anybody that's running is, look, you want to govern Alberta, doesn't it make sense to when you sense in wanting to manage this province and run this province, to ask all of the adults in the room, let's ask all of the adult citizens of Alberta, how many of you want to stay in Canada? What's the big deal? Are you afraid of the answer? Yeah. Right? Yeah. And of course, that's the real issue. And and again, we just need to keep the pressure on, and we need to keep moving that issue forward, and we'll get there sooner rather than later, I'm sure. So, thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Jeffrey Round. Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. You're always lively. We're going to take a little break. So we've got about 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes. I'll call you back, and we're going to draw for the basket. So if you have brought someone new, or if you are new yourself, make sure you get a little ticket into the draw for a fabulous basket. It's got my favorite book. I don't think you remember my favorite book. Why Justin Trudeau's, I don't know, greatest hits and why we should respect him or something like that. And it's a completely blank book. It's my favorite. Anyways, it's a really, and there's tickets in there, 2 tickets to the Alex Epstein event. That's on October 28th. And that's coming up, and he's quite the guy. So I don't know how many have tickets to that. Yeah. Oh, more tickets. There's little things on your seat. Have a look. Buy tickets for that. So thank you, and enjoy. There's cookies and water, and what I'd like you to do is find somebody you don't know and say hello during the break, if you will. Just say hello and tell them why you came here tonight. Okay, thank you.